Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to design a cookie cutter in SelfCAD for 3D printing. This is relatively simple, but there's a lot we can learn from this design. The first stage would be to actually draw a profile. SelfCAD has ample enough tools, 3D sketching tools, to actually create a profile, but for this video I'm going to import an SVG file that I found, which is a design of a cookie cutter found from someone else. Okay, so what you see on this design, actually this already has thickness, like it has a wall thickness, how thick we want it to be. I'm going to tinker with this later to show you how you actually make these thickness. In case you draw it yourself, you then need to create an offset to make the thickness. But I also want to show you that sometimes these profiles, when you import them, they may have some issues, and similarly, if you draw them a mistake with some issues, how you fix them. So before I see, let's see if it actually has some issues. So let's take the next step. So suppose you have drawn this profile and then you added this thickness, this offset, which actually I'll show you later. It's a tool using the add thickness tool to make this offset. And then next stage would be to actually use this profile and convert them into a 3D geometry. And for that, we're going to use extrusion tool. Now, the extrusion tool normally should extrude the entire thing. So if I make, let's say 100, it should extrude it normally, but this is not working as expected. As a sneak peek, you can actually see over here, there's a hole over here. So this means that the extrusion tool actually cannot find it. Looks like there's a hole over here also. So what this means, it's a lot of times I find this depending, I'm not sure which software this was drawn, this SVG, but many times these 2D graphic software are not concerned with closing shapes, or people who are drawing them don't know how to use it, or whatever the case is. This has problems. If you look into this file, this profile itself, you can actually see, I'm not sure how much is visible on the camera, but you can see there are gaps basically over here. Now you can manually detect them and go to 3D drawing and simply draw a connection here and fix it. But luckily SelfCAD actually has a tool to do it automatically for you. So we're going to go to the Magic Fix tool. Now this is the beauty of SelfCAD, that all of these tools double down. You may be familiar with Magic Fix fixing a mesh, but this actually is also going to work on a profile. Now, if I remember correctly, Magic Fix is also going to work on a 2D profile, meaning it's completely flat. If this would be like 3D, different heights at different locations, I think this tool would be disabled, if I'm not sure. But nevertheless, we're going to do over here, we're going to click preview. And if you look over here, again, I'm not sure if it's visible, you can see it's already closed. Now I have the default over here. It's a relatively low tolerance, an angle tolerance. But that works in our case because the gaps are very small. Now this supposedly has fixed all of the gaps, because the gaps were just small between these drawings. This has perhaps been drawn in segments and then combined together without properly stitching them together. So these gaps have been fixed. We can try that now if we do extrusion, and if you see I have the same 100 extrusion and it works perfectly fine. So that's basically it for now. Now the question is, how do we add the knife part, like to make it sharp? And for that I'm going to show you two ways. First, I'm going to activate my wireframe plus solid plus wireframe, so we see the details. We can actually see we have a very nice quads. So the benefit of quads is that we can use the advanced selection, loop selection. So I can actually loop select faces, and loop select all of these faces around, and then simply move them up a little bit like this, and that actually gives me this knife at kind of like this angle at its side. Alternatively, I can also, it's actually the same thing, just a different option. It may be a little bit more intuitive if we select actually the edges that we want to move. So if I select the edges, I loop select edges, and again the same thing. Despite the fact these are triangles, the top, and you cannot loop select in triangles, but this is still working because the sides are quads, and the sides are quads, then basically this allows me to loop select. But nevertheless, the idea is the same. We're going to go to the move tool and simply move it up a little bit to get this angle over here to make it into kind of a knife. But as you've seen over here, we have the option to add an edge from the inside or from the outside. Now I have selected the outside ring, basically the loop. You could have done the same thing, select the inside loop and move it the other way around. So you can basically select the inside loop, and again this will loop select because the inner faces are quads, so it recognizes it, and then I can move it like this, so to give it the outer edge or inside edge. Okay, so both of these basically works if you want to have the edge outside, but what if you want to have the edge in the center? So basically in the center should be an edge, and this is a little bit more complicated, but actually luckily we have a very good way of doing it. I'm going to activate the polygon selection mode. Before I worked with faces to show you the loop select the faces. Now I activated the polygon mode, and I'm selecting simply the top polygon. And what I'm going to do now here is I'm going to inset this polygon. So I already measured, I know the thickness over here is 5. So if I go make this up to 4, this is 4, you see it's very tiny. If I make it to 5, I basically completely collapse it. And this is now completely collapsed. This actually creates some issues you can see over here because this drawing has not been perfect. So if I want to make it perfect, I will need to fix this drawing. But for now, let's leave it like this. And I'm going simply, while I finalize it, you shouldn't do this if you want to keep it this way, because this actually will make it non-manifold, because now we have collapsed edges and they actually intersect a little bit. That's a problem. But once I finalize it, these automatically still selected. You can not see it because it's hidden, basically it's collapsed, but I know they are selected, and you can actually see it over here that it's one polygon is selected, and this is that inner polygon. And while they're still selected, I'm simply going to move them up. And once I move them up, you can see this is basically what we got over here. We got this complete link over here selected. Now you can see this is not perfect. We have here problems that we need to fix, the profile that created this artifacts. But another benefit that we have, that we collapse this. So first of all, we have now a perfect knife in the center of it. But there's another added benefit that we collapsed everything, and we actually ended up having over here quads as well. So if I would, for example, do, I'm not sure who would do that, but I recall seeing sometimes a cookie cutter that has teeth. So if I'm going to activate now the edge selection again and loop select, I'm going to loop select these edges again. Now I can loop select this entire ring because this has been turned into quads, and I can turn on a custom pattern. So if I do custom pattern, the default is you select one, you skip one. I'll change it. I'll select one and skip two. And while they're selected like this, I'm going to move up these that remain selected, this pattern, and do something like that. And now we got teeth to our cutter. So again, I don't know the use case, but I remember seeing something like this, like teeth. So this is actually quite nice. You have a teeth, and then you have this knife. So it's kind of like a zigzag knife that we have over here with this cookie cutter, and that's quite nice. Now let me show you how we can quickly fix these problems over here. So I'm going to get rid of this profile of this object again. I'm going to go back to the main profile, and I want to show you here some simple tricks. So first of all, I'm going to select this. I turn on the edge mode, and in that case I can select just parts, not the entire thing, and I'm going to select this section over here. So the problem here is that this is too sharp, and it's basically starts intersecting with all of these offsets and stuff. So actually I don't need that much. I selected, I think, extra edge. Okay, so I'm selecting this, and it's just a technical thing. The idea here is I'm going to add an arc, but I just want to show you a simple tip. I'm going to split this off. Now the idea here is that I still want to use this as a reference, what I want to use, but I want to draw on top of this, not on top of this. So what I'm going to do, go back now, select this profile. So if I activate my drawing, it's going to draw on top of the active profile. But in precision settings, what I'm doing, I'm switching, I'm turning on only active profile, not all profiles. So my goal here is that I make sure that I can collapse and click. You see these green dots? That means I'm snapping to something. Now, if you have the default is on all profiles, if this is on, I can snap over here to any point over here, and you don't know what you're snapping. You may be snapping to basically, if you have all of this on, you may be snapping to the other profile, this one, the profile 5, and you wouldn't know what it is. So if I'm deactivating this only active profile, then I know I can snap basically to this profile over here, and then I can use a, oops, I'm sorry, I didn't want to draw a line. I'm going to go to an arc, and I'm going to draw a snap from here to here, and I'm simply going to draw, kind of estimating it. You see, that's why I want to use for a reference. I don't want it to go outside of here, but I want this to be kind of rounded, so taking this off. So that's basically it, and now I can kind of inverse select to select this and delete this, so we have this rounded. Now the problem here is it's not actually 100% the same thickness. I can play with that and kind of move this up a little bit, but that should do it for now. So I'm selecting again this profile, and I'm going to go again the same extrusion and do the same process we did before quickly. So I'm extruding this, I'm selecting this profile over here, and I'm doing inset by 5, and I am moving it up. So I didn't pay attention by exactly how much, but look how nice this is moved up over here. And you see there's some thickness over here. I can collapse that, but the main thing is, let's take a look at how nice this is now. Instead of what we had before, we had these nice edges over here, and I can further collapse these small edges if I care, but I don't think that makes a difference. And then what I can do over here is I can loop select again these teeth, and oops, I'm sorry, loop select this and move it up. Okay, so we have beautiful, you see how these teeth are beautiful, and you actually don't see anymore all of this extra piece you have over here. This has been straightened out by stretching it, moving it up. So now we have this beautiful nice shape over here by simply fixing it with an arc. Okay, so that's basically it for the tutorial, but why not add something? This is ultimately going to be 3D printed, and that's basically the whole goal, get creative. So why not add some creativity? So for that, what I'm going to do here is, let's first take a look. The height of this is 127. I actually don't need exact height, just for a reference for me. So I'm going to do over here is I'm going to select now, activate polygon selection or face selection, doesn't matter, they're both the same in this case, and I'm going to select the inner profile. So when you activate face or polygon selection, it selects the entire path, and if this is a complete solid closed path, it will select the entire thing around. And then I'm going to go to the same extrusion to extrude, but now instead of extruding this piece between these two, it actually extrudes the inside, because that's what I have selected over here. Now there's other options to do something similar. You could look at a separate video for drawing where I explain the idea of using fill polygon and different options, but for now that's the story becomes too long already, so I'll leave it like this. And what I'm going to do here is the goal, I forgot to say the height, nevertheless I want to make 127, doesn't matter. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to add thickness. So if you see these two, this is basically filling in the gap. Okay, so it's basically the height filling in over here, but I want this to come out over here. So this is going to use a dual purpose. One thing is, like, it's a form that you can keep it over here as a form that's basically going to keep this in shape. It shouldn't deform if you store it someplace or so on, kind of keeps in track. And the second thing what it's going to do here is it's going to cover the teeth, so kind of safety guard. So for that I need to widen this. So let's isolate this for a second again. I need to make this bigger. So how do I make this bigger come out over here? And that's what I'm going to go back to polygon selection to select entire top. And I'm going to go to an extrusion tool. Again, we're using extrusion, but now we're using it on a mesh. I'm going to extrude it just by 10. But again, this will just give me a simple height. That's not what I need. So what I'm going to do is I can turn on the side extrusion. So this by itself, similar to what I explained before when I collapse the faces, this by itself is non-manifold at this point. You can see over here this flickering, this stuff, because you actually have two faces on top of each other and extending. This has no thickness. So this is kind of a complete broken mesh at this point. You cannot 3D print. It will just delete this piece basically, but other tools may tell you it's non-manifold. But this is just an intermediate step. So I'm clicking apply to apply this, and now it wants to do another side extrusion, so I'm turning it off. So now look what we got. So actually what's happening is extrusion moves the face up. So the first side extrusion, instead of moving it up, it moved it sideways, made it just bigger. So it was still overlapping on top of each other without thickness. It was not a good thing, similar to what I collapsed before the faces and the inset. But after moving it up, the second extrusion moves up the face. This becomes perfectly fine. So you basically have a two-step extrusion one side and one regular extrusion, and you ended up having this. Okay, so now we can make it select this one, or simply move it up a little bit, make it smaller. Oops, I'm sorry, I clicked mistake to make a copy. I'll move it up to the size that I think, you know, maybe we need for this form. So we don't want to 3D print the complete thing over here. It's just a waste of material and time to do it. And now I just have to move it up to be visual. This is just for the visual over here, because I'm soon going to rotate that, and we're going to print it separately. So I'm taking these two things. Okay, so when it comes to 3D printing, you actually want to print this the way it is, the flat part over here and this over here, so you shouldn't need support. But this needs to be the opposite. So I'm going to simply go to the mirror tool, and I'm going to not make a copy. I'm going to simply mirror it onto the bottom top, so simply flipped over the side. Okay, and for 3D printing purposes, we are going to position it. Let's move this out of the way. Let's say I move this here, and then let's deselect this, move only this, like this, and position 0, so it's on the floor. So now if you're going to slice it using SelfCAD's great slicer, I have a separate video explaining the slicer in total and detail, but I just want to show you one quick tip. So if you activate two objects like this, it will give you a message asking you two options. So if you choose the right option, there are separate pieces that needs to be printed simultaneously. They will actually merge them together. Like it will put this on the floor, but this is something like that. There's use cases for this, but that's not what we want over here. So what we're going to do over here, use the other option, the left option. They are parts of a single piece. And in this case, it positions it perfectly like this, and you're able to start slicing and basically printing them. So that's it for this tutorial. There's a lot more we can cover when it comes to the actual drawing and some other tips in 3D printing, but as I said, I've covered them all in some other tutorials. So I think that will be for now it. Hope you learned something, and let me know in the comments if you want me to show anything else. And if you find this helpful, please like and subscribe. Thanks, and until next time, have a great day. Bye.